Hello, Raf. Thanks for joining me in this interview. Before we really get started with the content, can you give and say 2 words about yourself?
Well, thank you for the invitation. So I'm working for the Flemish government and I'm in the lead of the interoperability program Open Standards for Linked Organizations, Oslo. As well, I'm a researcher at Ghent University in the domain of interoperability.
Great, that's impressive. And from your experience, what are the key challenges that Europe is facing today when it comes to data and innovation?
Well, for me, we see a lot of challenges in the domain of personal data. So today, if we look, many of the data is under control of big tech companies, GAFAs, or if you want, GAMAs. This causes 2 kinds of problems. First of all, a problem on the level of transparency. It's my data and it's not transparent where they are using it for. And second of all, a problem on the level of innovation. There's no level playing field, the data is locked, and therefore in Flanders we are having a paradigm shift where data will be in control of the individual. This means that I can share my data with who I want to share it, for how long I want to share it, and this means that I will have more transparency, but as I can share the data with stunning companies across Europe, the data will be there, it will be flowing, and there will be more innovation. The value of the data will drop, but the value of the services on top of it will raise.
Okay, and this would balance or would compensate the drop that you just mentioned, and creating this level of playing field would be realizing this paradigm shift, correct?
Yes, it is. In Flanders we have been focusing on interoperability, technical and semantical, for many years with SEMIC as a partner since 2012 already. And now we are focusing on the upper levels. So the organizational interoperability, it's about ecosystems, public-private, and also on the top level, the legal interoperability.
When it comes to public and private relationships and partnerships, I think Flanders has taken some initiatives over there. Can you describe a bit more this organizational interoperability that you referred to?
Well, that's correct. So for decades we have been sharing data within the government. It's based on laws and decrees. But now we are moving towards a context where data will be shared between public and private partners and private partners. So to gain more transparency, of course, we put the citizen in control, but we need a context, both on the organizational and the legal level, and that's why we established the Flemish Data Utility Company. It's a trusted third party which lowers the barrier for companies to be active in the data economy, which also creates new legislation. So we have new legislation to enable to put the citizen in control and let data flow between public and private sector. So in this context, I as a citizen can reuse, for instance, my diploma within a private context and stay in control of my data. And as well, the data utility company is focusing on data ecosystems, which are on the organizational level.
Thanks, that's interesting. You mentioned data ecosystems. Do I understand correctly that this is a potential solution also, or thinking about the data spaces?
Yes, in fact, these are the ecosystems with underlying business models to create a sustainable ecosystem, which build on top of the data spaces. In Flanders, we embrace the strategy of the data spaces with also focus on the personal data space, where it's extremely important for me as an individual to get hyper-personalized services. This means that data between the data spaces must be interconnected, and there interoperability and SEMIC comes into place.
That's good that you mentioned SEMIC, because I was going to ask, how is SEMIC helping you today, and what should SEMIC start doing in the future according to you?
Well, we embrace the strategy of SEMIC since 2012. We have been an active member of the community as well. We are implementing the best practices of SEMIC in our everyday architecture. Now, for the future, I think collaboration across Europe becomes more and more important. And it would be great if SEMIC could organize a kind of marketplace where we could share our vocabulary, so our digital dictionary with other member states and regions. Something like the initiative of linked open vocabularies, where you can easily explore the valuable work of your colleagues across Europe and reuse it and republish what you've added.
On top of what you just mentioned, how could SEMIC also help from a technological point of view, where it has been active for several years now around solid personal data spaces that we talked about, and LDES, linked data event streams, and so on. So several technologies and specifications combined to achieve certain objectives. So what role do you see for SEMIC?
Well, these are really crucial building blocks, and for me they are interoperability facilitators. In a certain domain, such as solid for personal data and LDES for sensor data, they lower the barriers for public and private partners in order to participate in the data economy and the data spaces. Now, what do I expect from SEMIC? Well, on the one hand, I expect that SEMIC evangelizes on those precious components, but also on the other hand, that SEMIC creates a coherent European architecture for the different building blocks and also new building blocks to come, and also involve different stakeholders in order to create a sustainable community around these building blocks.
Thank you very much, Raf, for those insights, and I hope that together we'll be able to make that happen, all those challenges.
Thank you for the interview, and thanks to SEMIC, our European future is bright.